Today's the 12th day of Adar, the 12th of March. We're on page Ayin Zayin in Korban Pesach. So far everything I said is right, which is quite an achievement. I said that.
No, you said 12 of Adar.
I also said 12th of March. And we're almost a little bit over halfway down. V'nei tachlita kavana.
What does the page start with? What did you...
What does the line start with? מה שאין כן, in ראשי תיבות. והנה תכלית הכוונה של המאציל ברוך הוא שהציל וברא ויצר ועשה סדר השתלשלות עולמות אביה, אצילות בריאה יצירה עשייה, ידוע שהוא ירידה צורך עלייה. So what was the purpose of Hashem of emanating the lower worlds, bria, yitzira, asiya? We said that these three lower worlds, they are where things become individuated and distinct from one another. All the forces become distinct, individuated, become separate. All the forces that were all together. Okay, individualized, even better. Sounds better. So all these forces become individualized, they become separate from one another. And what was the purpose of going down? So the whole purpose of going down was to come back up. This is one of the big tenets of faith, of Pniyus Torah, of the inner teachings of the Torah. Yiridat tzorech aleya. That every descent is for the purpose of an ascent. Okay? שיהיו אחר כך ביטול היש לעין. And the Maggid used to call this, that this is called taking something that is being and turning it into non-being. But really it's not to negate it. It's not to make it non-existent. What it really means is that you take my willpower, like you said, my free will, and I use it to serve Hashem. So that's the ascent. The descent is that I had to come down. And then from here, and become something that has a very strong sense of self. And then I take the strong sense of self and I subjugate it to Hashem. I bring it as a like you would say, an offering to Hashem. ולכן סוף מעשה והתהוות הנפרדים הוא עיקר המכוון. כי אין מלך בלא עם. So from this we learn that the purpose really, that the world can only achieve its purpose when there's a physical reality that has the ability to negate itself, to nullify itself. And again, not to nullify itself in the sense of not to exist, because if you don't exist anymore, then you can't negate yourself. The whole point is that you continue to exist, but you continue to negate yourself, you continue to subjugate yourself.
We're the only creation that does that. Correct?
No, so angels do that also.
Oh, okay, yes.
Right, but by them, it really is a negation of their being. They cease to exist. By us, it's just a negation of our will.
Yeah.
A negation of the, what are you saying?
We dominate it.
We?
Dominate it.
What do you mean dominate?
It's there, we take over it. We don't nullify it. But in that sense, if we eliminate it, it's still there.
Right. We dominate our sense of self. We don't eradicate it.
The angels they don't have that test, in other words, or that...
It's because they don't come down so low, because they don't have a body. Okay. So the individualization in them is not as strong as it is by us.
There is individualization.
Okay, there is. Yeah. And they are separate angels,
yeah, right.
but they haven't come
down.
So fully down. Yeah. When you come fully down, then there can be truly and that's what he's called, there is no king without a nation, and king without a nation, which is something that's brought in the Tanchuma. It's one of the reasons for God creating the world. And in Chassidus, we saw this a couple of times. We saw this especially in Machatzis, in Gida Nashe. If you remember, we said there was this Chiddush from the Tzemach Tzedek that we're reading now, that he said, Am is the Lashon Memut. Memut means it's dimmed. What does it mean? It's dimmed. What's going on? So dimmed means that they are separate, that they have the light of Hashem, but it's separate. It's separate because they are separate, because they feel separate. A human being does not feel that he's one with Hashem. He feels that he's separate from Hashem. and then he has to reunite. What?
Omamut is not an Oman, somebody is craftsman.
That's Oman. Am is with an Ayin Mem, and so Omemot is that we say Gechalim Omemot. We say that the coals are dimmed. But really, what are we saying? We're saying that the light of Hashem is, you see that there's B'Tzelamenu Kidmutenu, there's the image of God in man, but it's dimmed. It's not like it was by Hashem. And this dimming means that it's in a separate vessel, it's separate enough that it has to nullify its will in order to reunite. And that's called Yiridat Tzorech Aliyah. That's called descent for the sake of ascent. כי אין מלך בלעם לשון הממות, רוצה לומר נפרדים. That was the Chiddush. That it means that they're separate. דווקא. וכשהם בטלים, כמו שכתוב, צבא השמיים לך משתחווים, זהו כבוד מלכותו ברוך הוא. And so he says there is an example, another example, this was in ancient cosmology, this is how they saw it.
Ancient what?
In ancient cosmology, this is how they saw it. And in Chassidus they adopted it, and they still use it as an example, that all the planets that revolve, that keep all the stars, that from our perspective, they keep doing the same thing day after day after day after day, that is the ultimate diminishment of the will, meaning the subjugation of the will. The ultimate, because they never take a break. So they call it Kol Tzva Shamayim Lecha Mishtachavim. The hosts of the heavens bow down to you. They say that the circular movement around that we see around the earth, that itself is a state of being subjugated to Hashem. Why? Because they should have gone flying off into the distance and disappeared. Why don't they do whatever they want? So they're subjugated. So today we wouldn't say it's the stars that are revolving around the earth. Most people would say the earth is spinning on its axis. Okay, even better. So the earth spinning on its axis, it's close to you. It's right here it is. Why is it spinning on its axis every day, doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing, and I'm not? Okay, so you would say it's just a piece of rock. What do you want? So they didn't see it this way. They felt that all these pieces of rock have some consciousness. I don't know how high, but the consciousness is there, or something. But more importantly, there's an angel that's responsible for this piece of rock. And what does this angel do every single day? As an angel, he has will. And what does he do every single day? He ensures that this piece of rock keeps turning around. The ultimate Sisyphean task. Well, it's not Sisyphean because it never really rolls down. It's just you keep pushing it up the hill, up, and keep doing it every day, every day, every day. Nothing changes. That consistency, Sisyphean, like Sisyphus,
Pushing the rock up
and then it rolls down. But it doesn't give you despair like Sisyphus, where it keeps rolling back down, so you want to bring it back up. It's an ultimate state. It's just an infinite task that never ends, and they keep doing it. And I say to myself, why don't I? Because that angel who makes this rock turn around, or makes this rock, the earth, spin, it's a power. It could be going in any direction. It could be doing whatever it wanted. What's ensuring that it, as long as you say there's forces of nature. Okay, I look at forces of nature and I see that they're very hard to control. I look at the forces of nature on earth. I look at the weather. I look at this, look at that. The seas, the oceans, the earthquakes. Everything is very unpredictable. So how is it that this is predictable? By the way, that's one of the big questions. Why is it that it's only in a very, very limited sliver of nature that things are predictable? If you go too far down into the quantum world, nothing is predictable. In fact, it's so unpredictable that it's like completely statistical. It's completely random.
Yeah.
When you go up high enough, it also becomes unpredictable. You look at the weather, meaning in complexity, it becomes complex enough, suddenly you get these degrees of freedom, and you can't predict. You can never fully predict. So there was this thing called Maxwell's. I don't remember. It's called shed shel Maxwell. I don't remember how do you say shed. They have a name for it in English anyway. And he said, "What is this with thermodynamics? That no matter what you do, gases are unpredictable. You can't order them. There's no way to order them. Why is it? Why is this all a random process? And that's how we treat it mathematically. It's a stochastic process. You can't know. If you take human behavior, which is very, very complex, it's also unpredictable. It's on the unpredictable. But you don't have to go so far. You can go to nature, and many of the powers in nature are unpredictable. They're just too complex to predict. So why is that? Why is there this only... We like to think about nature that it's all very, very orderly. But it's only a very small segment of nature that's that way. And below that and above that, everything is unpredictable. So why am I not like that small segment? Because I could be. And I could be predictable. I'd be in shul at the same time every day. And I do things the same way every day. And I'm not talking about you. You're a yek. You already do this. But for the rest of us, right? Why is it we're so unpredictable? Why can't I come at the same time every day? What's going on? So he said it's because I haven't subjugated my will. My will is still wild. It's still going off in whatever direction it wants. But the purpose was for me to subjugate my will, and to learn from them, from the stars in the heavens, that they bow down. They call this bowing down to Hashem. And the fact that there are many, many camps of angels, each one responsible for a different type of star and so on. They say these are different types, these are different levels of nullification to God. כמו מחנה מיכאל, ביטולם אל השם הוא בחינת אהבה ותשוקה. So Michael's camp, they nullify themselves with love.
With what?
With love. What does it mean that I nullify myself with love? Because he so loves Hashem, so he nullifies his will because he loves him. But on the other hand, there's a Gavriel. ומחנה גבריאל ביטולו בבחינת יראה ופחד. There it's out of fear. It's out of awe of God. It's a different reason to nullify yourself. There's many reasons why the person nullifies himself. There's a whole question about if a person nullifies himself because of fear. Is that good nullification? Maybe that's not so good, not as good as someone who loves out of love. Because it seems that the love is more voluntary than the fear. The fear seems to be like you're forced to go there. And the Rambam even writes it. He says that if a person nullifies himself because of fear, it's not as good.
Fear is also wanting to get a reward.
Could be, right? You're either afraid of the punishment, but you could also wanting the reward. And you're afraid to lose the reward, call that way. So on the face of it, Michal's camp is better than Gavriel's. Except that there are natures in the world. There's different natural tendencies. There's some people, the only way they can nullify is when they feel awe. They can't nullify out of love. Love is not a motivator for them. And there's other people that only fear is the motivator for them. It's not because, again, the level of the nullification in the end is the same. They do what they're supposed to do. And it's true, you look at it, you say, the person who does it out of fear, it's not as good. But it's not true. It's also a question of the proclivities of the person, his innate nature. There's some people who say, why is it that I always end up fighting with Hashem? Like that only when I get rocked, my boat is rocked, then do I remember to do things. It says it could be that it's your nature, that this is how you work. And if everything was with love, you wouldn't be able to nullify yourself. There's a natural tendency in people. There's many different types of nullification to God. בביטול הנשמות למעלה. אך דרך כלל כולם כאחד הנשמות, הן מלאכים, עולים ממטה למעלה בבחינת ביטול אליו ברוך הוא. But in general, the purpose of all of them is to nullify themselves to Hashem, whether it be souls or angels. And again, the difference is that the souls come down lower, and they have more free will because of that, because they come down lower. וזהו תכלית כוונתו יתברך, שזהו העלייה שבשבילה היה ירידת החיות ממנו ברוך הוא לאבות העולמות. And this was the reason for which God created the three lower worlds. Because in these three lower worlds, remember we even talked about this, that there's the angels in the world of emanation are not exactly angels. There's something a little bit different. Really, the angels are in the three lower worlds: Srafim and Chayot and Ofanim. Those were the three lower types. אמנם הקליפות וסטרא אחא שאין בהם בחינת הביטול. So what is a husk? What is a klipa? Or the other side, sitra acha. They are the elements that don't have bittul. That can't nullify itself. They don't nullify themselves. הרי מובן שאי אפשר להם לקבל החיות והשפע מבחינת היושר. Remember, the question we started with, why does the Arizal say that the klipa stands with its face to the inner light and its back to the surrounding light? That was the question we started with. You remember, it was on 152. He said, מה שכתוב בעץ חיים, שמעמד הקליפות בין המקיפים לפנימיים, אחוריהם אל המקיף ופניהם אל הפנימי. That was the question we started with. So he says, now we can begin to understand the answer to this question. Why is it that they face the inner light? What's the inner light? Is it circles or lines? Which is it? Remember now? It's the lines, the yoshel. That's the inner light. And the surrounding light is from the circle. So why is it that that's how they're situated? That's how they're standing. Their back, so we have to understand, what does it mean they have a back and a front? And what does that mean? And so their front now, says the Arizal, is facing the inner light. Their back is facing the surrounding light. So we finally come to a place where we can begin to answer this. This is what he's saying now. הרי מובן, so they can't receive, אי אפשר להם לקבל החיות והשפע מבחינת היושר. They can't receive sustenance directly from Yoshel, directly from the lines. Why? שהוא בחינת התלבשות האורות בכלים להיות השתלשות עולמות אביה. מאחר שהשפע העליונה הזו היורדת להתלבש בכלים אינה אל הצורך עלייה. Because we just said that the whole reason that the light descends further into these three lower worlds, and the more you descend, the more yoshel you receive, the more there is free will, like we said. There's more, that's yoshel, that's the human element. So they can't receive from there. Why can't they receive from there? Because the whole purpose of giving free will, the whole purpose of making these three lower worlds, this descent into the three lower worlds, where there's a dimming of the divine light, was for the elevation that comes afterwards. The decision to nullify myself. So they can't receive directly from that light because they're the opposite. They're the opposite of being nullified. It means that you can't descend, you can't take from the power of descent unless you can fulfill the reason of the descent. The reason of the descent was to elevate yourself. So they can't partake of that. Again, שאי אפשר להם לקבל החיות והשפע מבחינת היושר, שהוא בחינת התלבשות האורות בכלים, להיות השתלשות עולמות האביה, מאחר שהשפע העליונה זו יורדת להתלבש בכלים, אינה אל הצורך עלייה, להיות ביטול היש לעין כנ"ל. אם כן, אינה מתלבשת אלא בכלים שיש בהם בחינת הביטול. So this light, to begin with, the light that descends and creates the three lower worlds, it's, to begin with, it can only enclose itself in something that can nullify itself. And the klipa, it doesn't nullify itself. That's its whole purpose, that it's not nullified. Okay? So this is the beginning of understanding the question of why is it facing? Its face is to the inner light, which came from Yoshel, and its back is the surrounding light. We'll see tomorrow, God willing, the continuation of the answer.